It all started with the smallest detail. I wasn't snooping, no, just going about my usual business. I'm a creature of habit, you see, and my mornings are as predictable as a Swiss watch. Coffee at 6:45, toast at 7, a quick scroll through the news, and by 7:30, I'm out the door for work. My wife, Claire, is usually still wrapped in her morning routine by then. Yoga, shower, and a little time spent on her work as a freelance designer. But lately, well, things were off. It was the perfume that tipped me off. Claire wears Chanel No. 5, always has, and it's a scent that practically announces her presence when she walks into a room. Except last week, I caught a whiff of something different. Something fruity, with a hint of vanilla. Maybe I wouldn't have noticed if it hadn't been for the fact that she only wore it on days when she worked late. I'm not a paranoid man by nature, but you don't just switch perfumes after 10 years of marriage without a reason. So I kept my mouth shut and observed. And it wasn't just the perfume. There were little changes, new lingerie that she didn't wear for me, her phone always face down on the table, more time spent texting friends than usual. Something was up, but confronting her head-on, that's not my style. Besides, if she was cheating, I didn't want a tearful denial or some half-baked excuse. I wanted the truth, cold, hard, undeniable truth. And that's when I came up with my plan. I've always been a bit of a tech geek. I'm the guy who builds his own computer for fun, tinkers with home automation systems, and has a library of gadgets most people wouldn't even know existed. So, if anyone could devise a foolproof plan to catch their spouse cheating, it was me. The first step was simple enough, GPS tracking. I knew Claire wouldn't fall for the old find my friends trick. She was too smart for that. So I went a bit more sophisticated. I installed a tiny GPS tracker in her car, something she'd never notice unless she was actively looking for it. The kind that syncs with an app on my phone. At first, I only used it to monitor her during those late nights at work. And sure enough, her car wasn't anywhere near her office. It was parked in a residential neighborhood. Strike one, but I didn't stop there. I knew I needed more than just suspicious parking habits. I needed to catch her in the act. So I took things up a notch. I knew from years of experience that she wasn't exactly tech-savvy. She could navigate social media and online shopping, sure, but she had no idea how deeply I could infiltrate her digital world. I installed software on her laptop that mirrored her activity to mine. Every website, every email, every private message, it all came straight to me. And that's when I saw it. A name I didn't recognize, Jason, popping up in her messages. A lot. The texts were innocent enough at first, work talk, casual conversation, but then they started getting flirty. Strike two. But I was patient. I didn't want to blow my cover too soon. So I let the texts flow, watched as they made plans to meet up, all while playing the part of the unsuspecting husband at home. And then it happened. Claire said she was working late again, but I already knew from the GPS tracker that her car wasn't anywhere near her office. It was back in that same neighborhood, the one I'd come to know all too well. Now, it was time for the final phase of my plan. I wasn't just going to catch her, I was going to make sure she knew I'd caught her, and I was going to turn her world upside down in the process. I hired an actor, a friend of a friend, who does some local theater. His job was simple: play the part of a private investigator and confront Claire at the worst possible moment. I gave him all the details he'd need, the messages, the GPS logs, even the time and place she'd be meeting Jason. His job was to show up, act like a scorned husband who'd been following her for weeks, and make a scene. I'd even rigged his phone to look like it had incriminating photos of them together. On the day of their big meetup, I set the stage. I called Claire earlier that afternoon, telling her I'd be working late myself and not to wait up. She gave me some half-hearted response, probably already thinking about her rendezvous with Jason. I could feel the righteous vengeance bubbling inside me, but I kept it cool. Patience, I told myself. Patience. The actor, let's call him Pete, was perfect. He had that grizzled, slightly crazed look about him, the kind of guy who'd come unhinged after discovering his wife's betrayal. I paid him handsomely and gave him explicit instructions. Show up at the restaurant they were meeting at, right around dessert. Cause a scene. Mention the private investigator he hired, me, of course, and then storm out dramatically. While Pete was busy ruining Claire's dinner date, I was back at home, setting up the final twist in my plan. I logged into her social media accounts. She'd foolishly left them logged in on her laptop, and drafted a status update, something that would make her life implode in real time. But I wasn't going to post it. No, I was saving that little bombshell for the right moment. I waited for the call. I knew it was coming. And sure enough, about an hour later, my phone rang. It was Claire, frantic, her voice shaking. "Something weird just happened," she stammered. "Some guy. He came up to me at the restaurant, said he'd been following me and that he knew about Jason. He had pictures." "Oh," I said, keeping my voice calm. "That's strange." "Strange. It was terrifying. He said his wife hired a private investigator. What do I do? Should I call the police?" I smiled, even though she couldn't see it. "No need for that. I think we should talk when you get home." There was silence on the other end of the line. She knew something was wrong. Are you mad at me?" she asked, her voice small. "Let's talk when you get home," I repeated, then hung up. I could picture her panicking in the car on the drive back, her mind racing through every possibility. She was smart, but she had no idea how deep into this rabbit hole I'd already gone. By the time she walked through the front door, her face was pale, her eyes wide with fear. "What's going on?" she asked, dropping her bag on the floor. I stood up from the couch, holding her phone in my hand. "I know, Claire. I know about Jason." She froze. What do you mean?" "Don't play dumb. I've seen the texts, the GPS logs, the late-night meetups. I even had someone follow you tonight. So let's not pretend anymore, okay?" Her mouth opened and closed like a fish out of water. She was caught, and she knew it. But I wasn't done yet. "Now, here's how this is going to go," I said, my voice calm and measured. "You're going to pack a bag and leave. Tonight. I'll be filing for divorce in the morning, and trust me, I've got more than enough evidence to make sure you don't get a dime in the settlement." Her eyes widened. You can't be serious." "Oh, I'm dead serious. But here's the fun part." I held up her phone. "You see, while you were off with your little boy toy, I took the liberty of drafting a post for you, something that will explain to all your friends and family exactly what you've been up to." I turned the screen so she could see the post. It was a detailed confession of her affair, complete with screenshots of her messages with Jason. I hadn't posted it yet, but her face told me she knew I wasn't bluffing. "No, you wouldn't," she whispered. "Try me," I said, my voice steely. "If you don't leave tonight, I press post. If you try to contest the divorce, I press post. You see, Claire, I'm not just kicking you out. I'm blowing up your entire life." Her face crumpled, and for a moment I almost felt bad. Almost. But then I remembered the late nights, the lies, the betrayal, and that feeling disappeared. She left that night, and I never heard from her again. The divorce was quick and painless, well, for me anyway. I'm sure it was a different story for her, especially after I sent Jason's wife a little care package of all the evidence I'd gathered. Turns out she didn't know about Claire either. Funny how that works. And as for the social media post, I never had to press post. Just the threat of it was enough to keep Claire in line. But I still have it saved, just in case. So, to anyone out there who suspects their spouse is cheating, let me offer this piece of advice. Don't confront them until you've got all the evidence. And when you do, make sure you hit them where it hurts. Because revenge, when served cold and calculated, is so much sweeter. After that night, life moved on, at least for me, it did. I expected some fallout, maybe a sobbing phone call or a text from Claire begging for another chance, but nothing came. She vanished from my life as quickly as she'd been exposed, leaving me to settle into a strange new normal. Honestly, the silence was almost unsettling at first. After 10 years of marriage, you think there would be something, closure, confrontation, or at least a parting shot. But no, Claire simply faded away. Maybe that was the most damning part. The absence of drama confirmed what I'd suspected all along. She was only staying because she thought she could get away with it. The moment she knew she couldn't, she gave up. I did some social media digging, because who can resist, really, and found out she'd moved in with her sister in some bland suburban area. No sign of Jason, though. I guess even he had the good sense to bail when things got messy. It was almost poetic, the affair she'd risked everything for, crumbling the second it came to light. Serves her right. Meanwhile, I enjoyed a few quiet weeks to myself. I reclaimed the apartment, tossed out anything that reminded me of her, and treated myself to a few luxuries. A new sound system, upgraded my home office with a few gadgets I'd been eyeing. Small stuff, really. But it felt like I was reclaiming my space, bit by bit, from the ghost of Claire. Then one afternoon, as I was enjoying a rare weekend of doing absolutely nothing, I got an unexpected visitor. Jason's wife. Now, I didn't exactly expect a thank you note for exposing her cheating husband, but I also didn't expect her to show up on my doorstep. She introduced herself, Lisa, and wasted no time getting to the point. "I got your package," she said, standing there with the kind of calm only someone who's been through hell can manage, "and I figured I'd thank you in person." I invited her in, more out of curiosity than anything else. She sat down on my couch like she owned the place, took one look around, and gave me a once-over. "Nice place," she said, her voice casual but her eyes sharp. "Guess you didn't get hit too hard in the divorce?" I smiled, pouring us both a drink. "I made sure of that." "Smart," she said, nodding as she took the glass from me. "I wish I'd been as prepared as you were." Turns out, Lisa hadn't just kicked Jason out. She'd cleaned him out. In the few weeks since I'd sent her the evidence, she'd filed for divorce, frozen their joint accounts, and even managed to sell his prized car out from under him while he was scrambling to find a place to stay. Honestly, I was impressed. I hadn't realized I'd handed my evidence to a kindred spirit. "Jason's been living with his brother," she said, swirling her drink thoughtfully. "And you'll love this. He's been trying to crawl back ever since. Keeps saying he made a mistake, that Claire wasn't worth it, that he just got caught up in the moment." I chuckled at that. Funny, Claire's been radio silent since she left. "Yeah, well, don't be surprised if that changes," Lisa said, leaning back in her chair. "I've seen this kind of thing before. Affairs like theirs burn out fast. Once the excitement dies down and the reality of what they've done sinks in, people start wanting to patch things up." "I doubt that'll happen," I said, though the thought had crossed my mind more than once. "Even if she did, there's no going back." "Good for you," she said, raising her glass in a mock toast. "Here's to clean breaks and fresh starts." We clinked glasses, and for a moment I wondered if this was the start of something. Lisa was sharp, quick-witted, and had an air of confidence that was hard to ignore. But I wasn't looking for anything beyond a clean break. Still, we exchanged numbers, agreeing to grab a drink again sometime. After Lisa left, I couldn't help but think about what she'd said. Affairs like theirs burn out fast. It was a comforting thought that maybe Claire had ruined her life for nothing, that all the excitement, the sneaking around, the perfume and late nights had amounted to nothing more than a fleeting fantasy. And it didn't take long to see the truth in that. About 2 weeks after Lisa's visit, I got the call. It was Claire. I hesitated for a moment before picking up, but curiosity got the better of me. Her voice was tentative, shaky, like she was testing the waters to see if I'd even hear her out. "Aye," I just wanted to check in, she started. See how you're doing. I nearly laughed. How I was doing? Really? After everything? But I played it cool. I'm fine, Claire. Better than fine, actually. How about you? She paused. Not great, if I'm being honest. Of course she wasn't. I've been staying with my sister, she continued, her voice small. I don't know what I was thinking. I messed up, and I know I can't undo what I did. But maybe we could talk? There it was, the inevitable, desperate plea. I could almost feel the shift in power, the way she was grasping at straws, trying to reel back what she'd lost. But I was done. Claire, I said, keeping my tone steady, there's nothing to talk about. You made your choice. I've moved on. I know, she said quickly, but people make mistakes. We had something good, didn't we? I miss that. I miss you. You miss the stability, I corrected. The safety. You don't miss me, Claire. You miss the life you had before you blew it up. She didn't respond, but I could hear her breathing on the other end. Desperate, unsure. I'm not going back, I said, my voice firm. I'm not giving you the satisfaction of crawling back into the life you destroyed. She started to cry then, soft and pitiful, but I wasn't moved, not anymore. Take care of yourself, Claire, I said, before hanging up and blocking her number for good. And that was that. No fanfare, no second chances. Just the final nail in the coffin of a marriage that had already been buried. It was over, and I felt nothing but relief. I didn't need revenge anymore. I'd already won.